2010 Academy Award for Best Documentary goes to Remembering Anne Frank. Accepting the award is the writer, Miep Heese.
Members of the Academy, esteemed guests, thank you so much for this great honor. I am quite overwhelmed. I could never have imagined at the advanced stage of 100 years old, I would be standing in front of you tonight accepting an Academy Award for the movie based on my book, Remembering Anne Frank. Some have suggested that I was a hero for helping Anne and her family hide from the Nazis. No, I was not a hero. They are the true heroes of this story, for all they endured, and with so much bravery and courage. I will never forget the morning of August 4th, 1944. I'd gone into the hiding place early that morning to get my shopping list. Anne was her usual irrepressible self. Oh, Miep, can you get me some more movie magazines? And Miep, the bread you brought last week, can you get more? I told her, I will come back later and answer all of your requests. How could I have known on that beautiful summer morning that our lives were about to be destroyed and that those would be the last words I would ever speak to Anne? I could never have imagined any of this happening back in 1933 when I went to downtown Amsterdam to apply for a job as a secretary with a firm that made pectin for jam. I was 24 years old. As I stood in the waiting room, a tall, thin man in his 40s entered. Guten Morgen, Fräulein. Oh, excuse my German. I am Otto Frank. To put him at ease, I answered in German. Bitte nenne mich Miep means call me Miep. My Dutch family gave me that nickname when they adopted me after World War I from Vienna because conditions were so bad there. Miep means woman with her feet on the ground, something to live up to. I handed Mr. Frank my resume. He didn't look at it. I can type 80 words a minute. I know shorthand. He took me into another room. I thought I was going to take a typing test, but I found myself surrounded by pots and pans. I was in the kitchen. I know dictation. He pointed to a bin of strawberries. Can you make jam? Well, do you have a recipe? He pulled a card out of his pocket and handed it to me. Let's see what you can do. Well, I made pot after pot, strawberry, blueberry, apricot. I guess I must have done something right because I got the job. Later, I learned they had an opening in customer relations and Mr. Frank wanted to make sure I knew his product inside out. A few weeks later, a well-dressed woman in her 30s entered the you to meet my wife, Edith. And this is my younger daughter, Anna. Anne stared at my typewriter. Oh, how does it work? Well, you tap a key and a letter goes on a piece of paper. Oh, can I try it? I let her play with it for a few moments. She was fascinated. Finally, Mrs. Frank pulled her away. Anna, that's enough. Nip has to get back to work. From dinner, whenever Anne came to the office, I gave her a typing lesson. As the years passed, Hitler rose to power in Germany. We hoped his influence would not be felt here. It was not to be. A new co-worker was hired. One day I noticed an unusual pin on her sweater. What is that? Oh, I joined the NSB. The NSB? Yes, it's the Dutch version of Hitler's National Socialist Party. Well, why would you do that? Because I want to get those dirty Jews out of Holland. What is wrong with you? Don't you know that Mr. Frank is a Jew? Are you certain? Yes, and he's a fine man. 2 days later, she quit. In 1938, Hitler invaded Vienna. It made me sick to see newsreels of Jews of my fellow citizens cheering them. I panicked. I still had an Austrian passport, and I hadn't bothered to get rid of it. I hurried down to the alien department of police, but instead of stamping my passport, they gave me a new German one with a big black swastika on it. A few days later, I was eating dinner. Then there was a knock on the door. A beautiful blonde girl smiled at me. Good evening, Lee. I'm here to invite you to join the Nazi Girls Club. I'm not interested. But why not? You could go to the Führerland and meet your alien sisters. What is wrong with you? Don't you know what Hitler is doing to the Jews? I tried to close the door. She held it open. You will live to regret that decision. She left abruptly. I tried to forget about her threat, and life went on. I was often invited to dinner at the Franks along with Beth, a young woman who'd recently been hired at the firm, and the man I was seeing, Jan Hies. Jan was a tall, handsome Dutchman with sparkling blue eyes and wavy dark blonde hair. Whenever he saw me, he smiled delightedly, and, well, I could not help smiling back. Anne was very taken with him too. Once she told me, "Babe, I think Jan looks like James Stewart." She pulled out a movie magazine. "Here he is in Vivacious Lady. He plays a college professor who's married to a nightclub singer played by Ginger Rogers. Oh, when I grow up, I want to be a movie star and dance like her." She twirled around the apartment, bumping into the grandfather clock and tumbling to the floor. Mrs. Frank ran to her. Anna, be careful, you're like a little spinning top and you'll never run down." I also met the Franks' older daughter, the quiet and studious Margot, and other German Jews, Mr. Van Pels, his wife Augusta, and a dentist named Fritz Pfeffer. After dinner, we'd often discuss our hatred and fear the Nazis and our prayers they would never come to Holland. It was not to be. On May 10th, 1940, we heard sounds of planes overhead. Hitler had invaded Holland. The streets were overrun with German soldiers. The mood in our office was grim. Holland was no longer ours. Signs went up. Jews not welcome here. They were forbidden to ride trams or bicycles, drive cars, or eat in restaurants. Anne was 11 by now when she asked me, Miep, why don't the Nazis like Jews? They don't know any better than to hate. Are you afraid, Miep? I try not to be. But are you? I didn't answer. There was no sense in telling the child about my sleepless nights and heart palpitations. I received a summons to appear at the German consulate. The official asked for my passport. Then he squinted at me. Is it true you refused to join the Nazi Girls Club? Yes, it's true. You will be deported in 3 months. He stamped my passport invalid. I racked my brains for a way to stay in Holland. How could I leave my friends, my family, my job, and especially Jan? One day, we were shopping at a flea market, and Jan bought a beautiful gold ring. He held it out to me. Miep, I'm a Dutch citizen. If you marry me, you can stay in Holland. I love you, Miep. Will you have me? Well, of course, I said yes. We hurried down to City Hall, but to our shock we found out that when a Dutch citizen marries a foreigner, she must turn in her passport, and mine was stamped invalid. If the clerk was a Nazi sympathizer, I would be deported, although it was risky. We decided to take a chance and set the date for our wedding, July 16th, 1941. Mr. Frank closed down the office and he arrived with Anne. Then I was called before the clerk. My heart was pounding as I handed him my passport. He barely looked at it and he said, it's all right. I heard nothing of the ceremony till Jan tugged my sleeve and I managed to stammer, oh, hello. I was in a state of total euphoria. I had married the man I loved and I was Dutch. Afterwards, we went back to the office and Mr. Frank gave us a lovely wedding party. But our euphoria did not last long. More disturbing edicts came out against the Jews. They were required to wear Jewish stars, turn in their radios, banned from public parks. Mr. Frank made the decision to turn over his business to his Christian partners, Joe Kleiman and Victor Kugler. One day, he called me into his office. Miep, I have something to discuss with you. Please, sit down. He closed the door. My family and I have decided to go into hiding along with the Van Pence family. We will use the rooms upstairs as a hiding place. Since you will be working in the office below, I wanted to ask you if you had any objections. Why would I object? There's something else. I hope it would not come to this. I never wanted to involve you. What is it? realized this would be a great burden. What? Would you be willing to take the responsibility for caring for us while we are in hiding? Of course I'll do it. You know that the punishment for those helping choose is imprisonment or death. I know. Me. Think about it. Don't answer so quickly. There's nothing to discuss. Tell me what you want me to do. I knew I could count on you, me. Words cannot express my gratitude. We owe you everything. I felt a wave of terror rise up inside me, but I could not let Mr. Frank see that. Only if you will know Beth, Joe Klein, and Victor Kugler. They will assist you. They will consult with me on business decisions, and I will give you money for food and other supplies. All right. Oh, one more thing, Nick. Before you leave at night, make sure you pull down the shades in the office. Occasionally, they will come downstairs and do office work and listen to the radio. I asked no more questions. Should I ever be arrested and face interrogation? I tried to ignore the knot of fear that had formed in my stomach. It would be with me every moment for the rest of the war. In the eyes of the Nazis, I was now committing a crime. For weeks, Jan and I helped the Franks transport their belongings to the hiding place. They were set to move in mid-July. Then, the first Sunday in July, Mr. Van Pels knocked on my door. Margot Frank just received an order to report to a first sniper camp in Germany. Can you come right away? Margot was only 16. When I got to the Franks' place, it was in shambles. Anne ran in, carrying her beloved black cat. Mrs. Frank told her, No, Anna, you can't take him. But we can't leave him here all alone, Mother. Anna, don't come back to me. I don't have time. Mrs. Frank grabbed the cat and threw him out the back door. Anne burst into tears. I told her, don't worry, I'll find him and bring him to my house and keep him safe. Then, Mrs. Frank noticed a box of Anne's books. No, Anna, it's too much. Throw them out. You don't want me to take anything, Mother. Anna, don't you understand? It would attract too much attention. Anne started to cry again. All right. Pick one. Anne reached into the box and she pulled out her little red and white diary that she had just received for her 13th birthday. I'll take this one. It's the most important. The next morning, I arrived at the Franks at 6 a.m. and it was raining heavily. Margot emerged wearing layers of clothing, but minus the required Jewish star. And although Jews were forbidden to have bicycles, Margot had hidden hers. I told her, don't worry, the police won't be out in this heavy rain. We rode over 2 miles in the downpour at a moderate speed so as not to attract attention. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might not make it. By the time we arrived at the office, we were both soaked to the skin, and Margot was at the point of collapse. I opened the door to the hiding place for her. She disappeared. A few hours later, Mr. and Mrs. Frank and Anne arrived, also soaked to the skin. Nothing was said. I opened the door for them. they disappeared. A few hours later, when everyone had left the office, I went upstairs. There were bags of clothing and boxes everywhere. On this level were 2 rooms with a separate room for a toilet. This would be the Franks' new home. Up a steep flight of stairs was a large room with a stove and a separate room with a ladder leading up to a storage area. This would be for the Van Pels family. Mrs. Frank and Margot were like lost people, moving as if in a dream. Anne was sitting quietly, writing in her diary and crying over the loss of her cat. Then, the next week, Mr. and Mrs. Van Pels moved in, along with their shy, sweet 16-year-old son, Peter. Peter brought his pet cat, Mushi, with him, and took to Mushi right away. I often saw him sitting in her lap while she petted him and scratched his tummy. Mr. Van Pels had a friend who was a butcher, and he willingly supplied us with meat. Beth and I shop for groceries every day, being careful not to carry more than 1 bag of groceries to avoid attracting attention. Jan was working for the resistance, and he was able to obtain illegal ration cards for the families in Christian names. He also had a friend who owned a bookstore, and I paid weekly visits with a list of book requests. Anne once confided to me, "Meep, we have to sit all day in silence without moving. The feet fell asleep, and we can't even flush the toilet. It smells awful in here. What you need is a good book." "Oh, great, dear me. How about Anna Karenina? I love the movie with Greta Garbo. It's been bad. Oh, get it for me, please. I will try." It was not easy. It was a large book, but I put it in a bag and I left the bookstore on my bicycle. As I turned the corner, a car full of Nazis came speeding through a red light and knocked me off my bike. "Goddamn Nazi scum! Drink poison and die!" I screamed at them, totally forgetting my contraband package. They stopped the car. One of them got out and walked toward me. He stared at me lying on the ground, scrambling to pick up my packages. He reached in his pocket. Did he have a gun? Then he pulled out a cigarette and lit it and drove off. I went back to the hiding place and gave the book to Anne. She stared at me. "Me, you're bleeding. What happened?" I looked in the mirror and I saw a small cut on my head. Oh, car full of Nazis knocked me off my bike. "Let me get a bandage." And she cleaned my cut and said, "Meep, I'm sorry. You're hurt and it's all my fault." "No, it's not, Anne." "Well, if you decide you don't want to help us anymore, I could talk to my father." "Please don't do that." "All right, but remember, you can always change your mind." I could never do that. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do all that I could. Well, Anne loved Anna Karenina. After she finished, she once asked me, "Meep, do you think I'll ever have a great love like Anna, like Count Vronsky?" "Well, of course, only don't throw yourself under the train like the unfortunate Anna." "Oh, I could never do that. I still love life, even though we're trapped here in the hiding place because of the war. You know, I still believe people are really good at heart. Like you. Her words touched my heart, but I did not share her optimism. July 16th, 1942 was our one-year wedding anniversary, and our friends in the attic insisted on throwing us a party. They pooled their ration cards and they made us a delicious dinner and presented me with the menu. First course, bouillon de Hulzestraat, named after the street where you and Jan live, followed by roast beef Shorty, named after our butcher, then salad Richelieu, salad Hollandaise, one potato, rice Straussmandorf, after my favorite sweet little village in Germany, followed by coffee and other surprises. Well, we all had a delightful time that night, but we could never relax. Bep's father built a bookcase to camouflage the doorway to the hiding place. Every time I pushed it aside and went upstairs, I put a smile on my face and tried to act cheerful, and would always ask me, "Have you found my cat?" I'm still looking. Do you think the war will be over soon? Yeah, probably, as if I had a crystal ball. Once she told me, "Meep, I had a nightmare. The Nazis came and they took me away." Oh, don't worry, dear. It's just a bad dream. We all have them. I know I did. One day, one of the workers named Willem came to my desk. "So, where's Mr. Frank now?" Switzerland, I heard. Yes, I heard that too. He looked through the door into my other boss, Mr. Kugler's office, and straight at the bookcase. Wasn't there a door there? No. You know, I haven't had a raise in some time. I think 20 guilders is there. Talk to Mr. Kugler. Later that night I mentioned it to Mr. Frank, and he said, "Well, we have to give it to him. We can't take the chance he knows something." So Willem got his raise. But I always felt like I was walking on eggshells around him after that. And things were no better on the outside. Our landlady, who was Jewish, went into hiding, leaving behind all her furniture. We quickly registered in our Christian name so we would not be arrested for having Jewish furniture. Then, a friend whose son was a university student had refused to sign a loyalty oath. She begged us to, so we moved into our landlady's old apartment. Anne kept pestering Jan and me to spend the night. We needed a break from our home situation, so we reluctantly agreed. Well, you would have thought Queen Wilhelmina herself was paying a visit. They fixed us a delicious dinner. Anne gave us the room she shared with Margot. She showed us the pictures of her favorite movie stars on the wall. Oh, there's Judy Garland. I loved her in The Wizard of Oz. And Ray Milland, isn't he handsome? And Greta Garbo. I adore her. That night after dinner, I climbed into Anne's little bed. It was cozy with lots of blankets. Then I heard the chime from the Westertoren church, ringing every 15 minutes all night long. I could smell smelled of rotten potatoes and the garbage which could only be emptied on Saturday. Then I heard a scratching in the wall. I jumped up. Ah! A rat ran in front of the door. I slammed it shut and climbed in bed with Jon and tried to go to sleep. It was no use. My heart was pounding. I couldn't catch my breath. I felt the fear of my Jewish friends pressing down on me. For the first time I felt on a visceral level what it was like to be a Jew in hiding. The next morning, Anne peppered me with questions. How did you sleep? Will you come again? Did you hear the church? Oh yes, we'll come again. She looked out the window. Look, it's raining and you won't get wet because you don't have to go outside. But I had an appointment with Dr. Pepper later that day, even though it was illegal for Christians to be treated by Jews. After my cleaning, he asked me if I knew of a hiding place. I shook my head, but later I mentioned it to Mr. Frank. A few days after that, he told me, "The 7 can eat, 8 can eat as well. We have agreed that Dr. Pepper can join us in the hiding place." To make room for Dr. Pepper, Margot moved in with her parents, and Anne had to share her room with him. It quickly became clear he did not like cats. When Mushi jumped on his lap, he pushed him off and came to Mushi's rescue. He likes you. Yeah, well, I don't like him. Things got worse when Mushi got fleas and they infested every nook and cranny of the attic. Luckily, Joe Kleiman had worked for a pest control company, and he had an abundant supply of flea powder which he sprinkled on Mushi and in every nook and cranny of the attic. Anne and Dr. Pepper came to an agreement about the room. He would have it in the morning, and she would have it in the afternoon. But he was slow to leave, and Anne would tell me, "By the time he leaves, my time is almost gone." And he gets delicious treats from his Christian girlfriend, which he never shares with me or anybody else for that matter. Doesn't he know we all have to look out for one another? Apparently not. In 1943, Germany surrendered to Russia. We hoped it would be the beginning of the end of the war. It was not. A new owner bought the building. One day he showed up with his architect wanting to inspect the premises. Joe told him he couldn't find a key to the second floor. So they said they would come back another time. Now we had that sword hanging over our heads. Margot Beck enrolled in a correspondence class in shorthand. The real student was Margot Frank, and continued to write in her diary. She filled it up and sent me out for another one. I happily replied. One day I came into the hiding place and I found everyone very upset. They had been downstairs the night before listening to the radio when they heard a burglar trying to break in. They quickly shut off the radio and ran upstairs, leaving it tuned to the BBC, which Hitler had said was a crime. I told them, "Don't worry, it was dark in here. He probably didn't notice." Mrs. Frank was not reassured. "Yes, but if he's arrested, he can escape prosecution by turning us in. A thief is safe, a Jew is not." She was right about that. Things were getting even worse for the few remaining Jews. The Nazis raided Jewish schools for the blind, insane asylums, hospitals for the terminally ill. Every day as I walked to work along the canals, I saw bodies floating face down with Jewish stars on their backs. tell the friends about that. I knew I could end up there myself for my illegal activities. I just started taking another route to work. Food was always in short supply around the hiding place, and it didn't help that our grocer was arrested. We had to go further afield for food, and it was more expensive. One night I went up into the hiding place to discuss this with my friends. They were eating dinner, the usual boiled kale and rotten potatoes. Mr. Van Pelt said, "We must sell my wife's fur coat." He pulled it out of the trunk and put it on the table. Mrs. Van Pelt said, "No, it was a gift from my father." Anne was drinking a glass of milk. "But you could do so much good by selling that coat. Don't you want a chance to make a difference?" Mrs. Van Pelt grabbed her arm. "This is none of your business, Anne. The milk went flying all over the coat. Oh, now you've ruined everything." Anne ran out crying. Luckily, Mr. Van Pelt and I were able to clean the coat, and I sold it on the black market for a lot of money. That kept us going for a few more months. Now, Anne was always a daddy's girl, but she often argued with her mother. She would tell me, "She treats me like a child and bosses me around." Your mother is in a difficult position, and try to understand. Oh, did you get along with your mother, Meep? Well, we were separated when I was 11, and I was sent here from Vienna after the First World War. Oh, how sad. But I'm sure you keep your mother's spirit in your heart, don't you, Meep? Yes. Sometimes talking to Anne was like talking to an adult. She was wise beyond her years. But she was still a teenager. I often saw her staring at my hair and trying to imitate my hairstyles and clothing. So one day when I was shopping at a flea market, I saw a pair of red high-heeled shoes. I bought them for Anne, having no idea what size they were or if they would even fit her. When I brought them into the hiding place, I held them behind my back. Anne noticed right away. "What have you got there?" Surprise. "Show me!" She backed me into a corner. "You're so impatient, Anne." She reached behind my back and pulled out the shoes. "Oh my God, Meep, thank you so much. My first high heels, they're beautiful." She slipped them on her feet. They fit perfectly. I feel just like Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz with her ruby slippers, and teetered around the hiding place until she mastered walking in the heels. Then I saw her walking like the movie star she'd always dreamed of becoming. That night I saw Peter looking at her in a new way. A few days later I asked her, "Anne, do you like Peter?" "Oh, yes. He makes me laugh. He says I have dimples and a pretty smile." "Oh, but the best one is Peter wants to go to Hollywood with me. Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded. Somehow my visits with Anne always cheered me up, even though life on the outside was becoming even more disturbing. One day, Jan and I came home, and our boarder was nowhere to be found. A few hours later, he strolled in and said he felt cooped up, so he went to the racetrack. And when I stopped him at the gate, he gave our address. Jan exploded. "Get out right now!" He had put us in mortal danger. He threw his suitcase out the door and he left. A few days later, the Nazis pounded on our door. Jan grasped my hand. "Meep, they've come for us." Slowly I walked toward the door and opened it. The Nazis swarmed in. But instead of arresting us, they went into the bedroom. They pointed at the antique mahogany bed. "You have church furniture!" They said they would come back in a few days and take it. And if we protested, we'd be sent to prison. We waited with a heavy heart for them to return. It was our great good fortune that they never did. St. Nicholas Day was approaching as well as Christmas, and our friends in the hiding place always wanted to celebrate. They made gifts for Jan and me, Beth, Joe Kleiman, and Victor Kugler, and gave me some sweet soup that she'd made from little bits she'd collected over the past few months. She also gave me a card with a picture of a Christmas tree on the front that she drew herself. In it she wrote, "Dearest me, we are all so grateful for your care and concern. To say thank you does not seem nearly enough. Nothing would ever be enough for all you do for us. All I can say is I love you very much. And to prove it, I'm going to name my first child Beep, even if it's a boy, like Adam." Mrs. Van Pels gave me a beautiful diamond and onyx ring that had been in her family for generations. I didn't want to accept it, but she insisted, saying it was all she had to repay me with. A few weeks later, it was Anne's 15th birthday. Peter gave me some money and asked me to buy flowers for her. That's when I knew things were getting serious. I managed to find some of her favorite pink peonies, and Peter presented them to her at the party we had for her. She blushed. "Oh, Peter, you're beautiful. Thank you so much." She kissed him on the cheek. He took her face in his hands. "Happy birthday, dearest, and may we spend many more together." Then he kissed her on the lips right in front of everyone. She threw her arms around him. "Oh, Peter, you made this the best birthday ever." Then he took her hand and led her up the ladder towards the storage area. Mrs. Frank tried to stop them, but Mr. Frank told her, "Leave them alone." Now, I don't know what went on in that storage area. I only know it was so sweet to have romance in the hiding place. Rats were always a problem in our hiding place, especially with our limited supply of food, because I had a healthy appetite. One night, I returned to the hiding place late to give my friends some good news. I'd heard on the radio that Britain had invaded Normandy. D-Day had begun. I found Mrs. Frank in a confrontation with Mr. Van Pels. She'd heard a noise in the kitchen and went upstairs and found him eating a piece of their meager supply of bread. "You think you're eating what little bread we have?" I couldn't stand the hunger pains. Get out, all of you!" and ran into the kitchen. "No, Mother, they'd be killed on the street. I don't care." I interrupted this confrontation. "Mrs. Frank, I understand your feelings, but you most likely won't be here much longer. Britain has invaded Normandy. D-Day has begun." Everyone cheered. Oh no, Mrs. Frank did say, "I want to change rooms. I don't want him anywhere near the food." We were so happy that night in June. But our euphoria did not last long. The end of the month, the war was many months away. How could I have known on that beautiful June night that our happiness was about to be destroyed, and that less than 2 months later, I would have to sit silently by and watch my friends being dragged out of the attic, begging for their lives. Between 10 and 11, on that terrible morning, August 4th, 1944, Beth and Joe Clyman and I were sitting in the office. Suddenly the door opened. I looked up and saw a man in a Nazi uniform aiming a gun at us. Murder Jews! They froze. No one spoke. You traitors! Joe will pay for your crimes! Joe rose. There must have been some mistake. Sit down! I know they are here. He walked toward the office of my other boss, Victor Kugler. Don't move, I will be back. Then he left. Joe turned right. Behind the bookcase in Victor's office was the entrance to the hiding place. He whispered, "Pip," and time has come. Well, who could have betrayed him? I don't know. Maybe the burglar. Maybe Willem. Beth was crying hysterically. Joe told her, go to the drugstore. Call my wife and tell her what happened. Tim disappeared. He turned to me. Maybe you can live too. I knew I couldn't. I was in too deep. If I left, the Nazis would hunt me down and kill me. We waited for 45 torturous minutes, wondering what they were going to do to us. Suddenly the door opened, and Mr. Kugler emerged, followed by the Nazis who ordered him, "Give the keys to the young lady." As he pressed them into my hand, Victor whispered, "Stay out of this. Save what can be saved." Then the Nazi hustled him and Joe Clyman out of the office. A few moments later, the Nazi returned. He picked up a phone and called for a truck. His accent reminded me of my relatives in Vienna. Then he turned to me. "Where's the other girl?" She doesn't work here. She was just here for an interview. I prayed you would believe me. What's her name? Just then, a bunch of Nazi soldiers came swarming into the office. The man with the gun directed them to the hiding place. I could hear their heavy boots on the stairs. Then I heard screams and shouting. The interruption must have made the man with the gun forget about Beth. He turned to me. "Now it's your turn. Stand up and answer for your crimes." We were face to face. I could smell his hot, rancid breath. I looked him in the eye and said, "Du bist aus Wien, ich bin dort geboren." You're from Vienna. I was born there. He looked shocked, confused. "Give me your papers." I handed him my identity card and said, "Born in Vienna." In a fury, he threw it in my face. "Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Happy Jewish garbage! You will burn in hell for your crimes, you Jew lover!" I did not react. Finally, he calmed down. He looked me over, glancing at my wedding ring. "As a personal favor, because you are a fellow countryman, I will not arrest you. But God help you if you try to run away. They will take your husband. Keep your hands off of him. He's not involved. I will come back and check on you. One wrong move and you go to prison." Then he left. Van Pels was begging for her life and was sobbing. Please don't hurt me. I looked out the window and I saw a Nazi dragging her to the truck by her hair. Peter tried to stop him and then cracked him over the head with a rifle and threw him in the truck. I looked away. I felt so helpless and guilty. I alone had been spared. Jan had been watching from across the street. When the Nazis left, he ran back into the office with tears streaming down. It was a very dangerous idea, but it was our only chance. I took up a collection and came up with quite a lump of cash to offer to the Nazi from Vienna who I had learned was named Karl Silberbauer. I will try to make a deal with the devil. That night, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I could not get back to sleep. I looked around the room. The pictures on the wall, a Rembrandt print, a windmill, our antique bed. Would this be the last time I ever slept in it? I got up and went to the closet and looked for something to wear. I settled on a blue suit, white blouse, and black pumps. I drank cup after cup of coffee. I boiled our last egg. At 8 o'clock, Jan got up. Then I told him of my plan. He exploded. No, me, no! The Nazi almost arrested you once. Don't tempt fate. I was spared for a reason. I have to try. Me, don't be a martyr. You're going into the lion's den. People who enter Gestapo headquarters don't come out. I hugged him tightly. With luck, I'll see you tonight. Meep, you're taking your life in your hands. I'm begging you. Don't do this. I don't want to lose you. You won't. I picked up my purse and walked out the door. I knew I might never see Jan again, but I put up a brave front for his sake. As I crossed Dom Square, I said a silent prayer to the God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. Finally, I arrived at Gestapo headquarters. I took a deep breath and went inside and looked up Silberbauer's name in the directory. My heart was pounding as I walked up the stairs and knocked on his door. Come in! Silberbauer was sitting at a desk under a picture of Adolf Hitler. Oh, the jewel lover from Vienna, what do you want? How much would it cost to free my friend? No, I can't help you. An order just came down. I don't believe you. I want to speak to your boss. Go upstairs. My legs were shaking so much I could barely climb the stairs, but somehow I made it to the third floor. I knocked on the door. No one answered, so I pushed it open. There sat a table full of high-level Nazis, listening to the BBC, which was a crime. I had just witnessed them committing a crime of treason. I knew they could kill me for that. I had nothing to lose. I said, "Who's in charge?" A heavy-set, bald Nazi rose and pulled out his gun. "Get the hell out of here!" He pushed me out the door, slammed it in my face and shouted, "Schweiner Hund!" meaning pig dog. I ran down the stairs and I bumped into Silberbauer. "I told you, now get out!" There were Gestapo soldiers everywhere. I expected at any moment someone would stop me. pieces and carry on. I went to the bank and told the director, there's no one here to sign the checks. They've all been arrested. He told me my signature would do. So life went on, if you could call it a life. Our country was being destroyed, and so were its people. Then, the hunger winter of 1945 began. There was no transportation, so Beth and I had to walk over a mile to work every day. There was no coal for heating, no gas for cooking, very little electricity, and there was also no food. Over 25,000 people died of starvation that winter. We wondered how much more we could endure. Beth and I used to have to go out into the country and dig up potatoes, and we had to be back by an 8 p.m. curfew. But then the tide turned. Roosevelt died in April of 1945. Hitler, Mussolini was hanged in a gas station in Milan. Then we heard on the radio Hitler had committed suicide. One day, on May 4th, 1945, Jan came into the kitchen and took my hands. Mip, the war is over. We ran into the streets. There were people dancing, embracing, laughing. The Germans went wild. They ran into the square and started shooting people. Then they left. Food packages rained down on Amsterdam. Queen Wilhelmina returned from London, where Winston Churchill had called her the bravest man in England. The Canadians arrived to help us rebuild our ruined country. Jan got a job in Central Station helping people returning from the camps with food and money. He asked everyone if they had seen the Franks. No one had. Then one day a man said, "The Senor Frank is coming back." A few weeks later, I was at home looking out the window. Then I saw a cadaverous figure walking toward my door. I ran outside. There was Mr. Frank. There were no words. We just looked at each other. Finally he said, "Edith is not coming back." I'm so sorry. I hugged him tightly. But I have great hope for Margot and Anne. Yes, great hope. I came here because you and Jan are those closest to me who are still here. Oh, this is your home now. Stay here for as long as you like. It would be 7 years. That night over dinner, he told us, "I was before a firing squad in Auschwitz. When the Nazis learned the Russians were near, so they fled." "And the others?" I saw Mr. Van Pels being taken to the gas chamber. Peter was taken by the Russians. I heard he did not survive. Neither did his brother or Dr. Pepper. Margot and Anne were taken to Bergen-Belsen. It is not a death camp. That is why I have great hope that I will see my girls again. I prayed he would get his wish. One morning, I was seated next to Mr. Frank in the office opening mail. Suddenly he cried out, "Mip!" He grasped a letter in his hand. He gave it to me. "Dear Mr. Frank, I was in Bergen-Belsen with your daughters Margot and Anne. There was a typhus epidemic. It is with a heavy heart that I regret to inform you they both died of that disease. He sat there in silence for a long time. They couldn't look at each other. Finally, he said, "I'll be in my office." I felt like something had been ripped out of me. I felt so sure the girls would survive. I heard my co-workers coming in, making coffee, saying good morning. I was paralyzed. Finally, I reached into my desk and I pulled out Anne's little red and white diary. She would have no use for it now. I walked into Mr. Frank's office and held it out to him. Here is your daughter Anne's legacy to you. In Otto Frank's hands, the diary made its way into print, stage, and film. Anne Frank's centers opened in many countries around the world. Her words came to inspire millions of people. Otto Frank turned the hiding place into a museum. Later, he moved to Switzerland, where he remarried and got a new family. He died in 1980 at the age of 91. Mr. Kleiman and Mr. Kugler rejoined the business after they got out of the camps. Beth left the business to marry. Later, she gave birth to a daughter. She named her Anne. And in 1959, all four of us were honored to be knighted by Queen Juliana of the Netherlands for helping the Franks. I did help Mr. Frank build the Anne Frank Museum. I still go there every day. I was only interrupted back in 1950 when, at the age of 41, after years of trying to become parents, Jan and I were blessed with the arrival of a healthy baby boy. And so, my dear Anne, this award is for you. You are now the movie star you always dreamed of becoming, and your words will live forever. As you said in your diary, I don't want to live in vain like most people. I want to be useful or bring enjoyment to all people, even those I've never met.